Okay, so you guys are absolutely, I'm sure, thrilled to hear my voice again, drone on in a headset and a microphone. But just pretend I'm like pacing and gesturing in front of you guys, and just know that I'm there with you in spirit. Rah rah. Okay, so obviously up in front of you, you guys see the tragic example that Ian turned in. Not to throw Ian under the bus because it was like his first or second attempt, but you'll see that the highlights down here are all blown out because he sort of hit the boot and he hit this stuff from the front, right? And that's sort of the problem with lighting from the front. You guys have got to light these things from the side because you've got to have distinct and clear highlights and shadows. Okay, I cannot impress upon that enough on you guys, right? Distinct and clear highlights and shadows, because if you don't, you won't know where to paint. Okay, all we're doing is painting this to give us a guide for what we're going to do in post production. So if you have no guide, you're going to be a little bit lost, and your image is going to look flat without knowing where to put highlights and shadows in. So because Ian did this, if we go up here and like check our little box up in the histogram, we can actually see these turn red, which means no, there's no detail there, right? So thank God he shot raw. So we're going to come back here and drop the highlights down and try to pull our highlights down. So if you guys do this and you have your own and your highlights are blown, pull your highlights all the way down like this and try to recover because we're looking for texture. See the texture I've got down here now? I got texture, okay? Keep pulling the highlights down. I have more texture, right on. Only problem is I pulled my highlights down, now the image looks flat. So if the image looks flat, it means it's lacking contrast, so we just boost our contrast up, right? So now boosting the contrast, it's looking a little more normal. I like that. So it looks like we lost some detail here in our shadows. Again, we're looking for highlights and shadows, the both of them together. So if we pull our shadows up a little bit on this, we'll see there's the highlight. There's the highlight, people, right there. Righteous. And there's a little more right there. Okay, cool. Pulled our shadows up, right? Next thing I would do is I'd bump the clarity, which the clarity, if you bump it, the midtone contrast comes up, and you'll see it looks a little more stylized and cool. Almost like Harold Ross's stuff, right? Okay, and I'm going to bump the vibrance just a touch. Boom, done deal. Now I'm feeling like I like this. Okay, guys? I like this because it has highlights and shadows that I can play with and get real with, right? So you'll notice, and you guys will not do this because you guys will be really good at this by the time you do it. See back here, this like light spot? You got to think of your still lifes, you guys, as if you're painting with spray paint. Okay? So you're spraying it on, you're spraying it on. If you're too close to the background, you're going to get spatter on your background. So one of the biggest things I can tell you guys for success is keep your still life material off of the background. Don't let it get too close. If it gets too close and you hit it with your freaking flashlight, you're going to spill onto the background. Just pretend your flashlight is like, again, like spray paint. Okay? Just as you wouldn't spray paint this too close to something else without worrying about getting paint on it, right? You wouldn't do that with light either. So once we've got it done and I like it, I'm going to open it up. There we go. Boom. I hate this back here. Just saying. And I hate this right here too. This hot spot down here sucks. This looks pretty good in here. And the boot looks pretty good, minus this part. This looks really righteous. This looks good too. The flowers look really good. So what we're gonna do, and this is the finishing touch that you guys are gonna do once you bring your still life back in, is you're gonna make two layers. So if you come down here to the bottom, where the garbage can is, in the little bottom of your palette, where I am right here, you'll see if you click once, it makes a new layer. You're gonna click twice and make two. Layer one, you're gonna double tap, and you're gonna call that highlights. Layer two, you're gonna double tap and you call that shadows. And guess what? Yeah, you're probably gonna paint highlights on the highlight layer. You're probably gonna paint shadows on the shadow layer. Shocker, right? So highlights, you're gonna click that, and you're gonna go down to your blend mode, and you're gonna make sure it's soft light. And on your shadows, you're gonna go to your blend mode, and you're gonna make sure that that's soft light. Now you're ready to roll. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit Command plus and blow this thing up a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. See my guide, you guys? Highlights, shadow, highlight right here on the leather, shadow, shadow, highlight, right? You get the picture, huh? Highlights and shadows on these little things also, whatever these things are. The eyes, I think they're called, or something. I don't even know. Whatever. Highlight along here along the leather, shadow in the dip, highlight on the back. You see what I'm saying? So let's start with the highlights. You're going to go over to your brush tool. You're going to come up top up here. Make sure the opacity is about 15% because you're going to go over and over and over it. You're not going to lay it down in one swoop, right? You're doing multiple coats of paint. And then you're just going to make sure your hardness is 0. Boom. Brush tool, you're on white because you're painting highlights. You're going to paint highlights with white. You're going to paint shadows with black. It's that easy. So with my highlights, I'm going to take my bracket tool, which is up by under my delete key. Left bracket goes smaller, right bracket goes bigger. You learn this, you'll just absolutely save a ton of time. Okay? Space bar, I'm going to hold space bar down and drag this down a little bit so I can see it. Let go of space bar and start painting this highlight in. Right? So I got the white and I'm just reinforcing. All we're doing, you guys, right, is reinforcing the highlights we see. That's it. Okay? A little bit bigger of a brush up in here. A little smaller brush down here on this line. Little line there. Fantastic. Coming down here like that. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that because that's so freaking annoying. Okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I can't resist. Dude, I got to talk when I do this. It's crazy. Okay. That's why that dude Bob Ross talks like that when he does it, because he just can't stand it. He's like, little fluffy cloud, a little bit of tree right here, a little bit of aspen, a little bit of freaking evergreen, and we have a little fluffy pine right here. He just couldn't stand it, dude. The dude talked all the time when he painted, and I feel like I got to do the same thing. I'm not sure why. So it looks really ghetto right now, right? Oh, trust me, it'll look worse. The thing is you want to put it down pretty harsh in the beginning and pretty dramatic because you're going to back it off, right? So that looks pretty. Let's do. Yeah, shoot, that's why you got to get down to like 15 or whatever percent because you start doing this stuff like this and just pop, 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 highlight, pop, like that. So I'm making a popping sound, which, dude, nothing. I'm sure nothing does that. Highlights right here, they look pretty good. Let's blend that a little better. There. Okay, now we're gonna go to shadows. Click on the shadow layer. Change this to black. Fastest way to do that is hit X, but you can go old school if you want and hit this little arrow. And now I'm going to just paint in, you guys, where the freaking shadows are. The shadows are all up in here. All down here. Down in this madness. In this little crook. Down in here, there's some shadow stuff going on. Righteous, dude. Shadow going on back in here, right? And then we're going to get up in, where else are we going to go? Let's get in here, right? There's some shadow in there too. So let's going to shadow this out. Like that. Shadow that all in. Because then we're going to highlight that. So we're going to go to our highlights now. Go back to white. And do some highlight work. Highlights right here on the edge. The harsh highlight right there. Highlight down. I know, dude, this is so annoying. Trust me. I'd much rather stand in front of you guys and talk, but yeah. Come out here a little bit. And all you guys see what I'm doing, right? All I'm doing, dude, is pretty much going and reinforcing what I got. That's it. Okay? That's the whole nature of this whole thing. It's just going over the stuff that you already got and making it more pronounced. That's it. Okay. You can do it with the strings too. The roses will look amazing once you do it to them too, right? So you come down here and it looks pretty wrong, right? So now all you do is this. Once you start off really harsh like this, now you're going to go and drop the opacity a little bit. So on our shadows, we're going to drop the opacity a touch, make them a little more subtle, especially on our highlights. We're going to come down here and drop the opacity a little bit. See that? Even a little more. Right about there feels good to me. Ah, shoot, maybe a little more. I too overdid it. And we're going to bring our shadows up now because I dropped those down. I want it to be a little crisper. There, look at that. Don't look like pretty righteous? Now watch, just to show you guys the difference, okay? I want to group these and toggle it on and off. Now watch. Look at that boot. See the difference I'm making? I'm making a difference in the world right now. Look at that. Okay? And you might think that's too much. If it is, dude, tone it back, right? This is like, it's like painting. I'm not a very good painter. So I'm gonna come up, you come up here in the leaves and do the same thing. Come down here in the books, do the same thing. Darks and lights, highlights and shadows, hit that, and look really good. Now you'll notice down here I don't have a whole lot of highlights and shadows. It all seems like one big highlight, right? That's the problem with painting. If you don't paint it right from an angle, you paint it straight at it, it's gonna look like this. If you paint it at an angle, it's gonna look like this and like this. These flowers are painted perfectly. Okay, you want your flowers. If you shoot dead flowers, it's fine. If you want your if you shoot dead flowers, they should look like this. Look at that texture. Look at that cross light. It's spectacular. Okay? So, for your guys' homework, you guys are going to shoot a still life. You're going to make sure it's cross lit. You're going to make sure it's a theme of some sort of either texture or color or a theme in nature of like the tools that they are. Avoid shooting glass, avoid shooting mirrors, avoid shooting a reflectant material. You'll have a flippin' nightmare. Okay? So, once you're done with this, you just hit Command Shift E, flatten it, save it as still, and you're gonna turn it in and let me see that you guys could paint today, because that's what we're doing next time when we come in. Excellent. Okay. Have a great week. I'll see you guys Monday.